Today we're getting floral with Vogue Thailand, playing with porcelain dolls for British Vogue, and getting jazzy with Vogue US. My name is Marco, welcome to the Model Gene, and if you're ready to dissect this month's covers, hit that like button and let's get started on April's Battle of the Covers. Starting off with Vogue US, we have Gigi Hadid by Annie Leibovitz, and the first thing I appreciate in this cover is that it actually looks like her, not how Maisel and everyone else is completely transforming her face in Photoshop. I don't like both of her hands in her hair. Especially her left hand looks bizarre. It would have been better if one hand was brought forward to her face so we got to see her fingers. The alteration of the blacks on the subject draws attention to her ear, which would have blended in without an issue if it was left untouched. Speaking of Maisel, this editorial does feel like a watered-down version of the May 2007 Vogue US story by Maisel and Natalia Vodianova. The photos of Gigi are just halfway there, not wanting to commit to the jazz age look that they describe in the editorial, only allowing for soft tones of it to shape the creative direction. The best image from the editorial is this Paul Poiret-inspired cocoon coat. She's doing nothing, but the styling is rich. This is a decent cover for an actress, not for a model. Vogue Italia's cover is the April Fool's joke that they took too far. This is the worst cover of the month. They're only going to get another few seconds out of me because that is how much time they put into this cover. Vittoria Ceretti covers Vogue France, and I guess this is supposed to be sexy. Photographer Carin Backoff is doing a Terry Richardson impersonation in the editorial, but for the cover, a Louis Vuitton monogram on some tights is not enough to make this interesting. I do like her shifted shoulder, but the eye is then drawn to this empty area. This text would feel more balanced if it was a little smaller and higher up. Bella Ramsey covers British Vogue, and I have a whiplash from last month's cover of TAILAND to this one. The cover is very Victorian doll looking, not the type of face you'd expect to see on a fashion cover, but Paolo Roversi did a good job at hitting the right tone in this shoot. The clothes are definitely wearing her in the editorial. Bella is not someone making an impact in the fashion industry, but this is a better cover than normal for British Vogue. Vogue Portugal has 3 covers for the Eternal Fool's Day issue for April, and this is easily my favorite. Carlos Teixeira flipped this portrait on its head and mirrored the lower part of the face right at the pupils for this effect, and the result is something eye-catching. Slightly disturbing, but definitely memorable. Would I have preferred if they did this entirely with makeup, but painting the second face on her forehead? Absolutely. But the surrealism here makes you want to take that extra second to decipher exactly what is going on here. Narayana Cole is suffering from a bad case of conjunctivitis, but that hasn't stopped her from putting on her best glory hole hat. It is not my favorite cover, but it is still an interesting proposition. The final cover by Elio Nogueira is the weakest of the 3 in concept, but comparing to the Instagram influencer-looking photos from a lot of his work, this is much more interesting. If the narrative was a Carrie at the prom type of sabotage, with the model on the stairs throwing a pail of water instead of pig's blood, her face isn't translating that disdain, and the G and the U should be behind her. Alex Consani, Anak Yai, and Paloma Alcesser cover Harper's Bazaar, and Ethan James Green did a great job on composing the subjects to where they feel balanced in the image. This is one of the best cover of Alex, but Anak is the standout here. For the solo covers, the styling on Paloma's cover really let her down. These leggings look like they would go underneath the actual pants she was wearing. In Alex's cover, the black shoe is too dominant, everything else is very light and airy, so a gold heel with delicate straps would have suited this better and allowed the texture of the skirt to be the focal point. Anak's solo cover is my favorite. Her eyes are piercing and her pose is perfect for leading your eye around the image. Paloma Alcesser also covers Vogue ADRIA's April issue, and I really dislike this cover. Vogue ADRIA should be focusing on establishing their own cultural identity, not booking an American model, showing no fashion, no makeup, in a portrait where she looks bald. My expectations are low with this magazine, but yet I managed to be disappointed this month. Sarah Snook covers Vogue Australia, and this feels like an Annie Leibovitz celebrity portrait with the flatness of the shadows and the blue tones of the vegetation behind her. The pose is fine, the styling is annoying but acceptable, but it isn't feeling fresh. I much prefer the digital cover of Jacob Elordi by his sister Isabella. The composition is much stronger, the placement of this hat is great, and there is a story in his eyes. They did a sloppy job masking out his hair with the logo, but otherwise, this is a very good cover of Jacob. Rian van Rompuy covers Harper's Bazaar France, and the statement is immediately recognizable. The cover is giving Halston woman, she looks powerful and seductive, and I love this tangerine dress against the green background. The styling and the editorial isn't telling the same story as the cover, but I do like the images, particularly the movement in her hair in this sitting photo. which adds a dynamism to a normally stagnant position. Lulu Tenny covers HARPER'S BAZAAR Italia for 3 very strong covers. There is a dark and mysterious undertone to the photos, and this is my favorite of the 3 covers. This blue coat is extremely photogenic, the sheen gives us a range of color and contrast, and the ruching keeps the eye traveling. The one thing I'm not crazy about here is her hair. A platinum blonde would have worked better than this brassy one. Amar Acque covers Di La Repubblica, and I absolutely love this cover and the editorial. You do not need a lot going on to make a strong graphic statement, and this is executed with laser precision. I especially love her crisp shadow. The blue circle is so simple but effective. This has to be one of my favorite shoots from Carlijn Jacobs. This is my favorite cover of the month. The rest of the editorial is great as well. They definitely had a lot of cover options to choose from, and this type of fashion photography starts leaning into fine art territory. I could see some of these images in a gallery, not just a fashion magazine. Let me know in the comments which of these photos from the editorial would be your pick for the cover. Hilda Swinton covers Vogue Germany, and it looks like the interns took over this time, as evidenced by that pathetic spray paint effect on the Vogue logo. At this point, I'm bored of seeing Hilda Swinton every month on a cover, not promoting anything in particular, but just a cop-out of getting a celebrity for a cover, and it doesn't seem like she can say no. The pose and smile makes the cover seem so contrived. I hate the silver shoe with this champagne-colored outfit. This cover is a no for me. Emily Ratajkowski covers Vogue Turkey, and Cass Bird is definitely paying tribute to Peter Lindbergh in this shoot. The shots on the street in Soho feel the most Lindbergh, and it really makes me miss him. I like the masculine styling on such a feminine face. Her hand is posed perfectly, but the expression on the face is lacking. The hair does feel a bit sloppy rather than intentional, but it is not a bad cover. Ame covers Vogue Taiwan, and my biggest criticism here is the splash of water. She is sitting on a throne of ice, so what story does the water represent here? If it looked like she was melting the ice from how hot she is, and that spray of water was coming from her arms in a swinging gesture, I think it would have made a lot more sense. This feels more like a still from a music video than a Vogue cover, but I don't hate it. BB covers Vogue Singapore, and there are a few things about the image that I would change. I don't know what is going on with her raised hand, but I think it should be visible rather than hiding behind the O. The movement in her clothes is nice, but I don't like how everything is very crisply focused, besides a few areas, like the back of her legs. I would prefer for more of a motion blur, or for everything to be in focus. Also, the white of her clothes has a bit of warmth to it, and the shoes are more cool toned, so a different shoe or a quick edit in Photoshop would be how I manage this. Jane Goodall covers Vogue Philippines for their Earth issue, and photographer Artu Nepomuceno has a really special gift in storytelling with his photography. In Jane's eyes, it is like we can see the history of the world reflected back to us. This is a really fantastic cover. Artu is the same photographer who shot this cover of Apa Wang Odd for Vogue Philippines, and I'm always excited to see what work he'll do next. It is not the most fashionable cover for a fashion magazine, but it feels completely appropriate for the subject matter, and it makes me want to see more from the issue. Millie and Joran cover Vogue Thailand, but this all feels very shiny, plastic, and cheap. Joran's cover is the better of the two. Her pose is more interesting, but Millie's cover looks extremely unfashionable, not fresh, especially with that heavy influencer makeup from 10 years ago. Vogue Thailand's April Beauty issue is completely the opposite from the other two main covers. This portrait is gorgeous. This continues in the tradition of the great 20th century photographers like Bert Stern, here photographing Jean Shrimpton for Vogue US in 1965, and Irving Penn's cover of Wilhelmina Cooper, who went on to start Wilhelmina Models in 1967. For this Vogue Thailand cover, the makeup is the perfect balance for these flowers, the texture in the hair is great. I would not change a thing here. Fantastic Man magazine has 10 covers, and why is the best one of a female? Bibi Breslin has such a timeless face, but I think the Vogue Turkey cover with Emily Ratajkowski this month did a better job with this theme, although I do prefer Bibi's hair. Simon Nesman's cover is my biggest disappointment from the 10 covers. Not that it is necessarily the worst, but it is the only cover of a male model, someone who is a 2-time nominee for Model of the Year on Models.com, and yet this is the best they came up with. This red light not only washes out his muscles, but also the contours of his face. The pose is stagnant, the expression is blank. The biggest job any male model can dream of booking is a fragrance. Simon has shot multiple, so photographer Bruno Staub missed an opportunity to utilize a model to his full potential, a face that has garnered millions of dollars in sales for many brands. Carlos Alcaraz and Adrian Brody's covers are similar, but Adrian's cover is definitely better. His pose looks like part of an authentic gesture. It looks like they just asked Carlos to touch part of his face, and he is a banged photographer. I would have preferred if Adrian's cover was not so bright, but I usually prefer that. I can actually tell the way they smoothed his skin on his cheeks, the areas of texture they didn't touch, which they didn't need to do, but these retouchers can't help themselves. And that is where today's review is going to end, but for more about the fashion industry, check out the links below. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the covers this month, and be sure to subscribe to find out who comes out on top next month in the Battle of the Covers.